Ever wish you could just walk into a bar and order up, like, a boost of motivation?
Yeah.
Or a shot of happiness?
Totally.
Well, your body already has kind of its own internal cocktail bar, and it's called the endocrine system.
That's a great way to put it.
So in this deep dive, we're going to break down 6 key hormones that really influence, like, everything.
Everything.
From your relationships to your energy levels.
Right.
Oxytocin, serotonin, testosterone, dopamine, endorphins, and cortisol.
A powerful mix.
Yeah, we're going to explore how they work and, most importantly, how you can influence them for a happier and healthier you.
It's fascinating because a lot of times we think we're at the mercy of our hormones,
Yeah.
but it's really about understanding them and making choices that support a more balanced, hormonal profile.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Let's start with dopamine,
Okay.
often called the feel-good hormone,
Right.
linked to pleasure and reward.
Mm-hmm.
Dopamine drives us to achieve goals,
It does.
but it can also lead us down some not-so-healthy paths.
Absolutely. And I think it's crucial to understand the difference between what I like to call fast dopamine and slow dopamine.
I like that.
Fast dopamine is that instant gratification hit
Right.
you get from things like scrolling social media or indulging in sugary treats.
Mm-hmm.
It feels good in the moment, but it fades quickly and often leaves you wanting more.
So it's like that sugar rush, but for your brain.
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, on the other hand, slow dopamine that comes from putting in the effort and achieving something meaningful, like learning a new skill or finally tackling that project you've been putting off.
So that sense of accomplishment you feel after finishing a tough workout or completing a challenging task, that's the slow dopamine working its magic.
Exactly. And, that kind of satisfaction is much more sustainable and ultimately more rewarding. So think about those activities that make you feel truly accomplished.
Oh.
Chances are those are the ones that tap into that slow dopamine pathway.
I like that. So the takeaway here is to try to identify what gives you that slow dopamine and prioritize those activities.
100%.
All right, let's move on to serotonin, often called the happy hormone.
Right.
But, I've heard that it's actually a little more complicated than that.
You're right. It is.
Oh.
While serotonin is certainly involved in mood regulation, the idea that low serotonin equals depression is really an oversimplification. Recent research has shown it's a much more nuanced situation.
So it's not as straightforward as take this supplement to boost your serotonin and you'll be happy.
I wish it were that easy.
Yeah.
But there are things that we can do that we know support healthy serotonin levels.
Okay.
Like getting enough sunlight,
Right.
exercising regularly,
Okay.
and spending time with people who lift you up.
Yes, feeling connected and supported definitely contributes to overall well-being.
Sure.
Now let's talk about oxytocin, the hormone that's often associated with love and connection.
Yeah.
But I get the sense it's not just about romantic love.
You're right. It's not just about romantic love. Oxytocin is actually activated by any positive social interaction. It could be hugging a friend, playing with your pet, or even something as simple as a meaningful conversation.
So any interaction that helps us feel connected and build trust can boost oxytocin levels.
Exactly. But here's something that might surprise you.
Okay.
Even rejecting someone can trigger oxytocin release.
Wait, rejecting someone releases oxytocin? I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive.
Why is that?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Even in rejection, there's an element of honesty and setting healthy boundaries, right?
Yeah.
This can actually lead to stronger relationships because it encourages clear communication and mutual respect.
I had never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So oxytocin isn't just about warm, fuzzy feelings. It's also about building trust and connection, even when things get a little complicated.
Exactly. It's about being authentic in your relationships and communicating your needs, which ultimately leads to stronger, more genuine connections.
I love that perspective. It really highlights, the complex role our hormones play in our social lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about endorphins. These are the body's natural painkillers, and of course, they're famous for creating that runner's high.
Oh, yeah, that runner high.
But did you know that even a good laugh can trigger an endorphin release?
I did, actually.
Yeah, just 10 seconds of laughter can significantly increase your endorphin levels.
Isn't that amazing?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So laughing really is good medicine.
It is.
It's a natural pain reliever and a mood booster.
It is.
It seems like we could all benefit from more laughter and movement in our day, considering the effects on our endorphins.
I think so too.
Okay, time to get a bit more serious.
Right.
Let's talk about cortisol, the stress hormone.
Okay.
While it's essential for our fight or flight response, we all know chronic stress can really wreak havoc on our health.
It can. It really can. When cortisol levels are constantly elevated, it can disrupt the balance of other hormones and negatively impact everything from our sleep to our immune system.
So what can we do about it? Stress feels like an unavoidable part of modern life.
It does, doesn't it? But, you can't eliminate stress entirely, but the key is really learning to manage it effectively.
Okay.
And, the research we looked at suggests that even reducing your stress levels by 20% can have a significant positive impact on your hormonal balance.
That's encouraging.
It is.
So even small changes can lead to big improvements.
They really can.
Okay, so before we move on to testosterone, let's just take a moment and ask our listener.
Okay.
What are some of the stressors in your life?
Yeah.
And what are some small steps you could take to reduce them even just a little bit? We'll circle back to this later, but for now, let's delve into the world of testosterone.
This is a fun one because, testosterone is often associated with masculinity and aggression, but it's so much more than that.
It's definitely not just a male hormone.
Not at all. Women have it too, just in smaller amounts.
Right, and it plays a crucial role in both sexes.
It does. And, one interesting finding from the research is that testosterone actually amplifies social behaviors, both positive and negative. It can also impact decision-making, especially when it comes to financial risk-taking.
Oh, interesting. So those impulsive decisions we sometimes make, like splurging on something we don't really need, could be influenced by our testosterone levels.
It's definitely a factor to consider.
Wow.
Makes you wonder, how might testosterone be influencing your behaviors and choices?
Yeah.
Perhaps you're more assertive in certain situations or more willing to take risks in others. It's fascinating to think about how this hormone might be shaping your actions.
That's a great point.
Right.
It's all about developing that self-awareness and understanding the forces at play within us.
I think so.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, cortisol, and testosterone.
That's a lot.
So let's bring it all together. How can our listener use this knowledge to create their own optimal blend of hormones, like a celestial cocktail, as our source calls it?
Well, as we've discussed, reducing chronic stress is fundamental.
All right.
It's like building a solid foundation for a balanced hormonal profile. Remember those stressors you identified earlier? Taking even small steps to address those can make a world of difference.
Right, so maybe it's about setting boundaries at work, making time for relaxation, or simply learning to say no more often.
Exactly.
Correct.
And, beyond managing stress, there are so many other tools at your disposal. Practices like meditation, mindfulness, and spending time in nature, all of which can have a positive impact on your hormonal balance.
And of course, we can't forget about exercise, a healthy diet, and getting enough sleep. Those are essential for overall well-being.
Absolutely.
Including hormonal health.
100%.
So it's about finding what works for you and creating a lifestyle that supports your hormonal harmony.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not about achieving perfection.
Right.
But rather making small, sustainable changes that add up over time. So it's about experimenting and paying attention to how your body responds to different activities.
Absolutely. What gives you energy? What helps you feel calmer and more focused? These are all clues to what might be positively impacting your hormones.
I love that. It's like embarking on a journey of self-discovery as you learn more about your own hormonal rhythms. You can start making choices that support a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
100%.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the science behind these hormones to how they impact our daily lives.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway here is that we have more agency than we realize. We're not just at the mercy of our biology, are we?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We can actively participate in shaping our own hormonal landscape, and that's what makes this topic so empowering.
I completely agree. By understanding our hormones, we unlock a whole new level of self-awareness and gain the tools to create a life that's more aligned with our values and aspirations. So to our listener, we encourage you to keep exploring this fascinating world within you. Pay attention to your own hormonal rhythms. Experiment with different activities and practices to see what makes you feel your best. And remember, you have the power to create your own celestial cocktail for a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
Now, speaking of cocktails, Our research touched upon something really interesting about the impact of alcohol on our hormonal balance.
Right.
It's something to consider as we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
That's right. Alcohol can definitely throw things off balance, and it's worth understanding how. Let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. So, when we talk about alcohol, it's kind of interesting how even just one drink can set off this chain reaction, impacting all these different hormones in our system.
You're right. It's easy to overlook those long-term effects when you're, just focused on that immediate feeling of relaxation.
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
For instance, did you know that alcohol can actually suppress testosterone production in men?
This can lead to decreased libido, fatigue, even mood swings.
That's interesting. It seems counterintuitive because, you initially associate alcohol with feeling more confident.
Yeah.
Or even aggressive.
Right.
Which you would think would be linked to testosterone.
That's a good point. And while there might be like a temporary spike in those, emotions.
Right.
The long-term effect is actually a decrease in testosterone.
Okay.
So it highlights the difference between, immediate sensations and the underlying hormonal shifts that are occurring.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I've also heard that alcohol can mess with women's hormones as well.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Alcohol can disrupt the menstrual cycle, intensify PMS symptoms, even increase the risk of certain hormone-related cancers.
Wow, that's a lot to consider. And what about cortisol, the stress hormone we talked about earlier? Does alcohol affect that too?
It definitely does. Initially, alcohol can actually lower cortisol levels, which contributes to that sense of relaxation that a lot of people experience.
However, over time, regular alcohol consumption can actually lead to an increase in cortisol production.
So it's like a deceptive cycle.
Yeah.
It might seem to relieve stress in the moment, but in the long run, it's actually adding to the problem.
Exactly. And remember that chronic elevation of cortisol, as we discussed earlier, can have that domino effect on other hormones, leading to issues like sleep disruptions, weight gain, even a weakened immune system.
It seems like alcohol is really kind of working against us.
It is.
Especially when we're trying to create that optimal hormonal balance we talked about, that celestial cocktail.
It's definitely something to be mindful of, especially if you're really, actively trying to improve your hormonal health.
Right.
Now, this isn't to say that everybody needs to avoid alcohol completely.
Right.
It's more about making informed choices.
Yeah.
Being aware of the potential consequences.
So as with most things in life,
I think so.
moderation is key.
It really is. And, if you are someone who struggles with stress anxiety or any hormone-related issues, it might be worth considering reducing your alcohol intake or even just experimenting with taking a break from it for a while.
Okay.
See how your body responds.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we can, oftentimes gain valuable insights into our own health just by paying attention to how our bodies react to different substances and lifestyle choices.
I think so too. Listening to your body signals, understanding your individual needs is really important.
Yeah.
And of course, if you have any concerns, it's always best to consult your doctor or a healthcare professional.
That's a good point. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and go back to that concept of false truths our brains create to protect us from pain, which we touched upon earlier. How can understanding our hormones help us address these, and build a more positive internal narrative?
Well, I think sometimes our brains try to shield us from further hurt by, constructing these narratives that might not reflect reality. It's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
But these false truths can end up really holding us back.
Can you give an example of what one of these false truths might look like?
Sure.
Okay.
Imagine someone who's experienced a painful breakup. Their brain, in an attempt to prevent, future heartache, might create this false belief that all relationships end in pain or I'm not worthy of love.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
It is.
But it makes sense.
It does.
Our brains are just trying to protect us.
They are.
Even if it means distorting reality a little bit.
Exactly. But, recognizing that these fears and these limiting beliefs often stem from past experiences that, triggered certain hormonal responses can be incredibly empowering.
So how can we break free from these limiting beliefs?
Right.
It seems like, they could really have a big impact on our behavior and prevent us from, experiencing fulfilling relationships?
I think they do, and, it takes conscious effort,
Yeah.
but it is possible to rewire those neural pathways and create those new associations.
Okay.
And there are a lot of tools and techniques that can help, therapy,
Right.
mindfulness practices,
Yeah.
journaling,
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people who reinforce a more positive worldview.
So it sounds like it's about building self-awareness and challenging those negative thoughts when they arise.
I think so. It's about being mindful of how past experiences might be coloring your perception
Mm-hmm.
and actively choosing to focus on building a more supportive and loving inner dialogue.
I love that, it's about creating a new internal narrative, one that's based on self-compassion
I think so.
and a deeper understanding of our own needs and desires.
Exactly. And, as we rewrite that narrative,
Yeah.
we open ourselves to new possibilities for growth and connection and fulfillment.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've really explored the fascinating world of hormones and how they influence everything from our moods to our relationships.
Right.
But it's clear that we're not just passive passengers
We're not.
in this hormonal journey, are we?
We are not. We have more agency than we realize.
Right.
We can make choices that support our hormonal health
Okay.
and ultimately contribute to a greater sense of well-being.
So to our listener, we encourage you to keep exploring this incredible inner world.
I think so.
Pay attention to your own hormonal rhythms. Experiment with different activities and practices.
Yeah.
See what makes you feel your best. And remember, you have the power to create your own celestial cocktail for a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of hormones.
And until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep diving deep.
Yeah.
We've spent this deep dive really exploring these hormones and how they influence our lives.
Right.
From mood to relationships to energy levels. It's amazing to see the impact that they have.
It is.
But I think the takeaway here is that, we can influence this. We're not just along for the ride.
We're not. It's about understanding our own individual needs and what works for us.
Yeah.
It's a journey of self-discovery that can lead to a more fulfilling life.
So to wrap up this deep dive into hormones, let's offer our listeners some final takeaways
Okay.
and perhaps some steps they can take.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to remember is that knowledge is power. The more we learn about our hormones and how they function, the better equipped we are to make choices that support our well-being.
Absolutely. It's like having the owner's manual for our bodies.
It is.
We can start to identify patterns, understand our responses, and make adjustments as needed.
Exactly. And it's not about perfection or rigid rules.
Right.
It's about experimenting, listening to our bodies,
Yeah.
and finding what feels right for us.
That's such a good point. It's about making those sustainable changes we can incorporate into our lives.
Yeah,
Not about, quick fixes or temporary solutions.
you got it. We've talked about so many different strategies throughout this deep dive,
Right.
from managing stress to prioritizing sleep to finding activities that bring us joy and accomplishment.
Right. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where our hormones are working in harmony
Yeah.
to support our well-being.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be ups and downs, but, the key is to keep learning, keep experimenting, and be kind to ourselves.
I love that self-compassion is essential when navigating, the complexities of our internal world.
It is.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave our listener with a sense of hope and empowerment.
You got it.
You have the power to take control of your health and create a life that, feels vibrant and fulfilling.
You do.
That's a great message to end on.
It is.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, you have the potential to unlock a world of possibilities within yourself.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into hormones.
And until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep diving deep into